Welcome to the new video of our channel Easy Physics and Mathematics. We are discussing about Cbse 8th physics portion, that is force and pressure. In last class we discussed about what is meant by force. Simply what is force and effects of force. We know what is force. What is force? Force means a push or pull we are applying on an object, that is force. Effects of force. Mainly there are 5 effects of force. We know that we studied that. First effect is we can change the direction of a moving object. That is the first effect of force. Second one is we can move an object. If we are applying a force on an object, we can move an object. The second effect. Third effect is we can stop an object. If an object is in motion, we can stop the object. Fourth one is we can change the shape of an object by applying force. Fifth one is we can change the shape of an object by applying force. These are the 5 effects of force. Today we are going to discuss about types of force. We can classify force into different types. Which are they? Okay. What are the types of force? How we can classify force? We know force. Force means what? A push or a pull we are applying on an object, that is force. We can classify force into force into 2 types. First one is contact force. And second one is non-contact force. First type is contact force and second one is non-contact force. Okay, then what is meant by contact force? We know the word meaning of contact. What is the word meaning of contact? Contact means if 2 bodies are in touch, physically in touch, that means what? That bodies are in contact. If we are clapping our hands, what is the meaning of that? The 2 hands of us are in contact. Is it? That is the meaning of contact. So contact force means if the 2 bodies are in contact, they are exerting a force. That force is called a contact. The force exerted by 2 objects, that 2 objects are in contact, physically in contact, that force is called a contact force. There are 2 objects, this is the first object A and second object. The 2 objects are in contact, they are physically in touch. So the 2 objects are in contact and these 2 objects are applying a force. That force is called what? Contact force. Understood contact force? Okay, next is non-contact force. So contact force means what? 2 objects are physically in touch. Physically in touch, that is called a contact. The force applied by the object physically in touch, that is contact force. Then non-contact force means what? Non-contact. Non-contact means 2 objects doesn't in touch, not in touch, that is non-contact. If 2 objects are, okay, this is an object A and this is an object B. There is a distance between the object A and B, but they are applying a force. The B object exerting a force on object A applying a force on B and B applying a force on A. Okay, this type of force is called a non-contact force. So non-contact force means the 2 objects are not in touch but they are applying a force. Okay, that force is called a non-contact force. Understood? Contact force means 2 objects are in touch or physically in touch, they are applying a force, that is called a contact force. And non-contact force means the 2 bodies are physically not in touch but they are applying a force. They are exerting a force each other. That force is called a non-contact force. Okay, first type is muscular force. From the word itself we can understand what is meant by muscular force. Muscular force. Muscular force means the force applied by muscles. That is called a muscular force. The force by muscles. In lower classes we studied that the functions of muscles in our body. There are more than 600 muscles in our body. That all the muscles are interacting each other. So because of the interaction between the muscles, a force is produced. That force is called a muscular force. Understood muscular force? Muscular force means the force applied by muscles. You can take the examples. First one is we are lifting an object. If we are lifting an object, the muscles in our body is working. The muscles of our hand is using. Is it? All the muscles of our hands are interacting. Because of that force, we are lifting. Because of the result of that force, we are lifting that object. So that's an example of what muscular force. Okay. So muscular force means the force applied by muscles. And second one, very important contact force, that is frictional force. Frictional force. Frictional force is also a contact force. Okay, we know that contact force. Frictional force is a contact force. That means the two bodies are in contact. Then only frictional force will happen. Most of the activities in our day-to-day life, we using what? Frictional force. While we are walking, we are using what? Frictional force. While we are playing, we are using frictional force. Driving, we are using frictional force. That means if we are walking an example, so if we are walking, our leg and the ground, leg and ground are in contact. So it's a contact force. We are playing, the ball and the ground are in contact, are interacting each other. So that's also a contact force. Driving means what? The tire is interacting with the ground, road. So that's also a contact force. So we can say that frictional force is a contact force. First one is what? Frictional force is a contact force. And second point is, so frictional force is a contact force. And second one is, an object, we are taking an object A. This is ground. We are applying a force in this object. Object A, we are applying a force, placing on the ground. We are applying a force in this direction. Okay, we are applying a force on this object in this direction. Then the frictional force is applying in the opposite direction. Understood? We are applying a force on an object in this direction. The frictional force is applying in the opposite direction. That's a specialty of frictional force. Okay. So, second specialty is we can oppose the motion of an object by using frictional force. Okay. A ball is rolling along the ground. The ball is rolling along this ground. After some second, it will stop. Why it will stop? Because the ground, this is ground, okay. The ground applies a force in the opposite direction. It opposes the force. We are applying a force. The ball is rolling along this direction. Or the ball is applying force in this direction. But the ground is applying a force in the opposite direction. So the ball will slow down. After some time, the ball will slow down. Because of the frictional force, it will happen. Then what is frictional force? Frictional force is a contact force and it is always opposes the motion of an object. We can slow down the motion of an object by using frictional force. Okay, these are these are the main features of frictional force. And third contact force is mechanical force. Simple thing, what is mechanical force? The force exerted by machines, that is called a mechanical force. So these are the three types of contact force. First one is muscular force, the force exerted by the muscles, that is muscular force. Second one is frictional force. Frictional force means what? It's a contact force, and we can slow down, we can stop the motion of an object by using frictional force. It is always in opposite to the applied force. Frictional force is always opposite to the applied force, that is frictional force. And mechanical force is the force applied by the machines, that is mechanical force. Next thing is non-contact force. Non-contact force we studied. What is non-contact force? If two objects are not in contact but they are applying a force, that is what? Non-contact force. The non-contact force also we can classify it into three types. First one is magnetic force. Second one is electrostatic force, and third one is gravitational force. First one is magnetic force. Magnetic force means the force applied by magnets on an object, that is magnetic force. We know what is magnet, we studied that in lower classes. What is the specialty of magnets? Magnets attracts metals. Is it? That's a property of magnet. Magnet attracts magnetic objects. That's a specialty of magnet. So magnetic force means the force applied by magnets on other object. That is magnetic force. We are taking a magnet. There is a magnet and a metal, nickel. Okay, the two bodies are not in contact, some distance between them. Okay, but the magnet attracts this metal. We know that the magnet attracts magnetic objects. The magnet attracts the metal nickel. Okay, so that force is called magnetic force. Understood? The magnet exerts a force on this nickel. So the magnet will attract the nickel because of magnetic force. Understood magnetic force? The force exerted by magnets on other object, that is called a magnetic force. Understood what is magnetic force? The force exerted by magnets on other object. And one more thing we know, the magnets, like charges, like poles, repel each other, and unlike poles, attracts. We already know that the force, the magnets, what? Attracts unlike poles. That means if north and south poles, that means north pole and south pole, different poles, the north pole and south pole attract each other, and if like poles, that means north and north, otherwise south and south. So like poles repel each other. Poles means same poles, north pole, south pole, that is like poles. The like poles repel each other, and unlike poles means the south and north pole, or north and south pole. They are unlike poles, different poles what attracts each other. So this is speciality of magnetic force. Magnetic force attracts and repel each other. Okay. And next is electrostatic force. Okay, next is electrostatic force. Electrostatic force means, electro means charge. So electrostatic force means the force applied by a charged body on another object. Magnetic force means what? The magnetic force is the force applied by magnet on another object is magnetic force. And electrostatic force means a charged, the force applied by, the force exerted by a charged body on other object, that is electrostatic force. This is the charged object. It's a charged body and this is an object A. It's not in contact, some distance is between them, but this charged body will attract or repel this body. Why? This is applying a force on this body. Because of that force, the body will attract or repel this body A. Okay, this force is called electrostatic force. The force applied by a charged body on another object. Another body is called electrostatic force. The third non-contact force is gravitational force. Okay, we know that if we are throwing an object upward, what will happen? After some second, it will throw down. It will move down. Why the body will move down like this? If we are throwing this chalk upward, after some second it will move downward. Why it happens like that? Yes, because of gravitational force. The earth applies a force on that chalk. So that force, that body will move downward. Okay, like this. If we are throwing an object down upward, this is our earth. We are throwing a body object like this. After some second, what will happen? It will move downward. Okay, it will move downward. Why? This earth applies a force. The earth pulls the object towards the center of the earth. Understood? The earth, that means an object. This is an object. We can take the earth as an object. This object A applies a pulling force to this ball. Okay, because of that pulling force, the ball will move downward. Understood? We know that the planets are revolving around the sun. Why the planets are revolving around the sun? This is sun. The planets are revolving like this. Why the planets are moving like this? Yes, the sun applies a force on these planets. Because of that pulling force, the planets are revolving around the sun. Okay, in our classroom, so many benches. Between the object, there is a pulling force. Because of that pulling force, the objects are lying in the row. Why we are standing or walking? The earth applies a pulling force on us. Because of that pulling force, we are walking. We are standing in the earth. Okay. Earth is not applying a force on us. What will happen? We are flying on the air. We can't stand. Okay, so because of that gravitational pulling force, we are standing or the objects are lying on the row. Understood? So we can say that gravitational force is a pulling force between two objects. Gravitational force means what? A pulling force between two objects. This thing, I have 54 kilogram of weight. Okay. What is the meaning of that? The meaning of that is the earth applying 54 Newton force on me. That is my weight. Okay, if a boy have 64 kilogram of weight, what is the meaning of that? The earth applies 64 Newton force on that body. Understood? That is our weight. Understood what is meant by weight? Weight means the pulling force applied by the earth on us. That is our weight. Okay, this is all about gravitational force. And one more thing, magnetic force, like poles repel, unlike poles attract. Electrostatic force also like that, but gravitational force only attracting, not repel. That's the main difference between magnetic and electrostatic force and gravitational force. Gravitational force, all objects are in attract. The gravitational force always attract each other. The two bodies always attract each other. That is gravitational force, not repelling. Understood? Okay. So non-contact force is magnetic force. Magnetic force is the force exerted by the magnet on an object. That is magnetic force. Electrostatic force means the force exerted by a charged body on another object. That is electrostatic force. And gravitational force means the pulling force between two objects. Any two objects. The pulling force between any two objects. That is gravitational force. Okay. Today we have discussed the types of force. Mainly there are two types of force. Contact and non-contact force. Contact force means the force exerted if the two objects are in contact. That is contact force. Non-contact force means if the two objects are not physically in touch, but that two objects exerted force. That force is called a non-contact force. Also classified into three types. First one is muscular force. Muscular force means the force exerted by muscles. Frictional force. Frictional force means what? Frictional force is also a contact force, but it is always in opposite direction. That is frictional force. Third one is mechanical force. Mechanical force means what? The force exerted by machines. That is mechanical force. Next is non-contact force. The two bodies are not in touch, but they are applying force between them. That is non-contact force. First one is magnetic force. The force exerted by a magnet on another metal. That is magnetic force. Electrostatic force. Force exerted by a charged body on another object. That is electrostatic force. Gravitational force means the pulling force between two objects. That is gravitational force. Understood what is weight? The pulling force exerted by earth on us. That is our weight. Okay, this is all about today. Okay. If you like our channel, subscribe our channel and enable the bell icon, then you will get the notification of our videos. Thank you.